Welcome back to my kitchen, everyone. So it's not my regular kitchen, my home kitchen. Today, I am here in my restaurant Choco in Chicago because we need to talk about churros. So two things that you have to know about churros. And one is that the dough for making churros is very, very simple. Second thing is, it is super, super stiff. That's why when you go to places that professionally make churros, like we do here at Choco, you will find a big canister, a big tube over there. Now that has a plunger on the top of it that actually presses out, or as they say, extrudes the dough. It's there, loads and loads of pressure going into that. But the truth is, you can make it at home with a little home churro maker or something like a cookie gun. So think about that really stiff cookie dough and how hard that is, and you have to use a kind of gun to get it out. That's the same thing as churros. Now, when I say that the dough for making churros is really simple, I'm saying it's really simple. The first time I learned to make churros was at a street fair someplace in central Mexico. And this fellow showed me exactly how to do it. He had one pot on a big gas burner. He poured some water in there, gave it a little plug of oil, some sugar and salt, but just a pinch of each one, and then brought that to a boil, added some flour to it, and stirred it. That was it. Cleaned out that pot, filled it with oil, and then put all of that stiff dough into his big canister and started making churros. So it's so simple that even street vendors can do it from scratch right in front of you. Now, the refinement of my churro recipe actually came when I spent about an hour and a half standing at the window in Mexico City at Churrería El Moro, the really famous place that's been there, I think, since the 30s and is open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And unfortunately, it was a little too close to my apartment when I lived in Mexico City, because I couldn't stay away from it. I love their churros. So I stood and watched them make the dough over and over and over again from the front window at Churrería El Moro. That gave me refinement for this recipe. So all of those ingredients go together in a very simple way, but you can do it at home. So let's go home and I'm gonna show you. Ready to make churros dough. I've got a couple of cups of water, and I'm bringing that to a boil right now. I'm going to put it over fairly high heat. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. This is going to help us ensure that the churros brown nicely when we fry them. And then a teaspoon of salt, which is always welcome in anything that is sweet. I've got 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. You can use anything you have on hand for that, and stir that until the sugar and the salt have completely dissolved. Now, I need this to be at a boil before I add the flour to it, but let's talk about flour. In the recipe that is attached to this video, I am going to give you the weights and the volume for it. When I'm doing anything in the sweets kitchen, I always measure all the ingredients because it's much, much, much more accurate. I just said I always measure. Of course I always measure. What I meant to say is I always measure by weight because it's so much more accurate than measuring by volume. Now, coming up, you're going to see me deep frying, and you'll notice that I have a thermometer attached to the oil. I always do that so that I can monitor the temperature and I can keep the fire up underneath to keep it as steady as possible. Now, back to the recipe. And I'm going to combine here all-purpose flour with a little bit of whole wheat flour. You don't have to do the whole wheat part of this thing. You could just add extra all-purpose flour, but I think it gives a really nice texture to the churros that I just really, really love. Okay, we've got our water now at a boil here, sugar and salt dissolved, and then in one fell swoop, the flour goes in, and I'm going to turn this off now and stir it until the mixture becomes a ball. What we're doing now is to sort of cook this flour water mixture into a beautiful stiff paste. And this is going to take a little bit of work on your part because you have to keep turning it in there in the pot until you get it to come together into a smooth ball. Anybody that's ever made cream puffs has made something very similar to this as the first step before you beat the eggs into it. So I'm just keeping turning it and spreading it out. I want to make sure everything is completely mixed together. All the flour is completely rehydrated. And now it's got to cool off a little bit. You don't have to cool it until it's completely at room temperature, but I'm going to let this sit for a minute. Now, what are we going to press it out with? So you can buy this online. It's an inexpensive churro press. It is set up very similar to a cookie gun. And so this one has the canister like that. And then you've got the plunger that goes in like that. It comes with all different kinds of tips on it. But this is the standard star churro tip. You would also find something similar to this if you have a cookie gun. But this is so heavy that you need something like this to work with. Some people say you can roll it out, and I just haven't ever had really great luck with that thing. So I will meet you back here in a minute once this very stiff dough has cooled off a little bit. This is that really stiff dough here. I'll open this up. Actually, I got to pull the top all the way down here so that the plunger starts at the top. Okay, and then you'll just take chunks of this dough and fit it down here. Remember, I've fitted it all already with a star tip. And when I fill it about 2/3 full or so, I can put this on and then secure it like that. Okay, and then I'm going to screw this down. So this is very much like that huge one that we use in our restaurants, except that this one you have to be continuously cranking. So I've got an oil pot on over here, and I've got it at 370 degrees. That's kind of where I want to keep it. So I've got that done. And then I'm going to press this out like this. And then I will take this piece, this churro here, and drop it into the oil. This one's going to come out a little bit on the curved side, I think, here, because I made it too long to go in this pot straight. Now you'll notice that in Shoko, when we are making our churros, we press them out very long and then we bring them back up, doing a sort of teardrop shape for them. That's just something that I learned when I was in the Yucatan. Like in Mérida, they have a lot of churro sellers that are in that main square there, and they always do their churros in that shape. And I just thought that was quite different. Most of you probably have only seen straight churros. Now, I am not a fan of filled churros, and I'll tell you why. my favorite place for churros in Mexico City, the venerable old Churrería El Moro that I've talked about, they only do the thin ones and they fry them right before you get them. And that's what I fell in love with. When you're doing the filled churros, most of the people will actually do them someplace else and bring them, and they're just at room temperature. And to me, they're not as delicious as the ones that are fried to order. When they're still just hot right out of the oil, to me, that's when they are absolutely the best. Now, we want these to get a deep golden color, but I'll tell you what we're looking for in the perfectly fried churro. We want to have it be slightly creamy on the inside, and we want it to be really crunchy, crispy on the outside. If none of that creaminess is on the inside, I think they're over fried. This one is just about to get to the place where I like it. Move that over here. I have two kinds of sugar here. I have the classic cinnamon and sugar, so I'm going to mix the cinnamon into the sugar. This sugar is organic sugar, and so it's always going to have a beige color to it. And this is actually what we use at Choco, and this is sugar that is mixed with Mexican chocolate. So grind up some Mexican chocolate, and that is really, really delicious. So this looks about right to me. A deep golden color here. You can put it on a paper towel, but I think it's just best to go straight from the oil into the sugar. And while it's hot, the sugar will stick to it like that. And then I have a little bit of chocolate sauce over here because why not? And this is like one of my favorite things to do, is to take the classic churro, either from the chocolate sugar or the cinnamon sugar here, and then it's crunchy. I can feel it a little bit creamy on the inside there, and then just dip that into some chocolate sauce, and then that's a churro.